Welcome back, everybody, to the channel. I'm sorry for not posting a whole lot of videos lately. I've just been super busy being a college professor, especially this fall or past fall semester, as well as spring semester. It hit me particularly hard. But anyways, today with the video that I am uploading is actually a new treat for us. Typically, I've recorded almost kind of like a mini lecture in many of the videos that I've posted. However, today I actually have some video footage that I took on a cruise that I went on from about 7 or so months ago, to where I went to some Mayan ruins out in Mexico. But anyways, while out in the Yucatan Peninsula, we went out to the Mayapan Ruins, which you are about to see in the upcoming video, and it was truly a treat. Now, before we do get started, the Mayan civilization is something that I've researched not too deeply about, so I do want to point out that I'm not necessarily an expert. I think I mentioned it later on in the video, but nonetheless, it's absolutely fascinating for me going through a little bit of research before going on this trip, as well as watching a couple documentaries to prepare for this video. But even since I've recorded the video about 7 months ago, I've learned a lot more about the Mayan civilization itself. But anyways, just a little bit of background before starting the video. Mayapan itself, the city that I visited, it's considered the last Mayan capital of the Mayan civilization. Now, the Mayan civilization, just for context, it will flourish in the Yucatan Peninsula, as well as regions of southern Mexico, as well as Guatemala, from roughly about 300 to 900 AD. Their people do date back before that, but that was essentially the golden era. However, by the end of the 900s, their civilization will begin to collapse, a lot of it having to deal with failing crops, environmental issues, as well as civil strife that would become rampant because of a series of famines that would hit the region. But anyways, nonetheless, the Mayan people, they would carry on, and they still exist down in southern Mexico as well as Guatemala today. But anyways, prior to the arrival of Columbus, they would eventually move to several other cities, one of them being Mayapan. Now, Mayapan itself will really become a large, I guess you could say, a metropolis, even though it wouldn't number more than, I believe, 12,000 individuals. But nonetheless, it would become a large Mayan city around 1200 AD, and it would see really its height around the same time as the Aztecs, and then eventually it would collapse prior to the arrival of Christopher Columbus in 1451, for many of the same reasons that the Mayan Empire itself had collapsed before that. But anyways, it was an absolutely fascinating trip. If you ever get a chance to go to Mayapan, I highly recommend it. But anyways, other than that, everybody sit back and enjoy this video. Here at the base of the temple, and right here I wanted to show you guys this little, what was the right word for it? Show you this little engraving on the side of the temple. What we see here is basically a warrior that's being taken up to the heavens, as you can see at the bottom of the base, where you see the clouds, and you see that he's enamored in armor. And then you also see at the sides of his hands, he's being taken up or lifted up by several gods. However, one thing you would notice is that
birds.
Well, they're representative gods. But anyways, what you'd see is that in the middle, you see at the base or at his head, he's missing his head. Well, actually, something that's interesting about this is back during the height of this city, is you would have noticed a real human head would have been present there. Now, more than likely, what this was the head of a rival chieftain that had been defeated in battle. However, this isn't a display demonstrating him being defeated in humiliation, but rather being revered by the local tribes. There's also another engraving on the other side, but I'm not going to run around there. But it's also perhaps of a very influential figure. However, it's hard to tell who it is, especially if you ask the guides here as well. Right now in the Room of the Kings here at Mayapan. From reading the plaque that's just outside right here, from what I understand, there were some stuffed human heads on top of each one of these pillars, and then going across would have been wooden beams. We'll talk a lot about human heads as we go to different spots here at Mayapan. atop the temple at Mayapan here in Mexico, just south of Progreso, and just take a look at that view. It's incredible. And just a little bit of background information. This city of Mayapan was perhaps the last of the Mayan capital cities. It was about 2 square miles in radius, and it had roughly, if I remember correctly, about 16,000 inhabitants, with more on the outskirts of the city. Now there is a wall that borders the city, but you can't see it as it's been consumed by the jungle. But nonetheless, I mean, just looking at the small little complex, which gives you just a glimpse inside the everyday lives of those who would have lived here, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, you see down there already the town square where trade would have taken place. You would have seen, this is really where much of the ruling class would have lived, much within the city. Now, unfortunately, the city itself, it only lasted roughly about 250 or so years, rising around 1200 AD, and eventually falling around 1441 AD after some civil war that had occurred within the city. But anyways, just looking at these ruins here is absolutely incredible. Definitely, if you're ever in the area, I recommend visiting whenever you can. Now I'm standing currently in what would have been the marketplace here at Mayapan. That's here in the middle of the city, just a little bit beyond the temple that we see off in the distance. Now, looking at this, looking at the city square here, what would have occurred here is basically the local trade through the residents that were outside of the city. I mean, there were several thousands living on the outskirts of the town in rural communities. They would have brought in crops, they would have brought in all sorts of goods, even goods that you would have found in other regions of not just Mexico, but also throughout the Americas. Things like obsidian that would be traded here as well, that would be put to use by the ruling class as well. But anyways, that's the city square, and so we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at other parts of the town. As we can see here, what I'm showing you guys is a serpent head. That's part of the architecture that you would see around here. Now, interesting about this serpent head is it actually demonstrates a lot of the mythology that we see associated with the Mayapan and the Mayan people, not just in this city, but in other cities as well. Now, with that said, just a little bit of background for some Native American cultures. Now, my specialty is American history, so I typically look at North American tribes. And animals, just like in North American tribes, were seen as very sacred as deities in many cultures. We see this not just in the Americas, but we also see this prevalent, most notably over in Europe as well as Northern Africa. When we think of mythology, one of the first things to come to mind is either ancient Greece or ancient Egypt. And we see that through their mythologies, they believe in very similar things. Looking at the ancient Egyptians too, they have a very similar belief system to the Mayans that we see here, mainly because if we in Egyptian mythology, what they would worship is the sun, just like what we'd see with the Mayans. They believed that in the morning the sun would rise and it would die at night to live a rebirth. And we'd see that the Mayans worship something very similar, not just at this city, but also across all of their cities throughout central Mexico, all the way down to Guatemala, where they believed that the sun would be reborn, if you will, in the day, and then it would die at night, and it would essentially go into this battle at night in the underworld. So we see a lot of similarities with other mythologies. And once again, I'm not an expert on Mayan mythology, but you do see a lot of similarities to other mythologies throughout the world.